This edition of MacVoices is supported by Zapier. Connect your apps and automate your workflows. Zapier is the easiest way to automate your work. For a 14-day free trial before the end of this month, visit zapier.com/MacVoices. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, after way too long an absence, Mr. Adam Engst is back. Adam,
Hello,
great
Chuck.
to see you.
Nice to see you too. It has been way too long, and it's just things have been nuts. They're always nuts. I blame Apple.
Seems like it.
Can we blame Apple?
No, we can blame some others, but not Apple.
Oh, come on, Apple. Let's blame Apple. They're always at fault. I mean, like, come on, they just keep releasing stuff. Half time it doesn't work in the last year.
Wow.
I mean, come on, how many versions of iOS have we had so far? Look, I'm not complaining. It keeps me in business. I get something to write about every week. The new version of iOS, new version of macOS, new version of 4 operating systems they release every 3 weeks, it seems.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm still blaming Apple for why I'm so busy.
Okay, so let's go with that for a minute. We never know how it's going to go.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Adam, is this a bad thing? Is it a bad thing if they're trying to plug holes and fix things?
Oh, it's not a bad thing they're trying to plug the holes. The bad thing is the holes exist to begin with. I mean, the software quality of iOS 13 and Catalina was horrible. I mean, it was just bad. And I mean, I can't say that it shouldn't have shipped because clearly they hadn't found the bugs on their own, so maybe they had to ship it to actually find the bugs. But no, the QA on those operating systems was abysmal. And I mean, the launches were botched. I mean, come on, they introduced iOS 13 while pre-announcing iOS 13.1. I'm actually forgetting now. It was in September. 13.1 and iPadOS 13.1 would be a week late. It would be 10 days later. And then after the reviews of the iPhone started to come out with just scathing comments about the software quality, they moved that up by 3 days. And then it was like a release a week. There was actually one release that came out, like one release came out on Friday. The next one came out on Monday. I mean, that's a sign of a company that's scrambling. They shouldn't be scrambling. They've never done that before. So that means they did something really wrong. And they've even kind of admitted it that we're going to be changing our practices, for the next version. We'll see if they change their practices sufficiently. But, iOS 13, iPadOS 13, I mean, once you got on the bandwagon, you had to keep upgrading. And they weren't terrible. It was just more that they kept finding significant enough bugs they had to keep updating. And Catalina really, I think only now would I start to recommend that people upgrade with 10.15.3.
Well, I don't disagree with that. But then again, I've never been one that, not on a production machine jumps on the bandwagon right away because there's so many variables and that it's got to get out in the wild to find them.
And early on the problem was the bifurcated system, where you had read-only system volume and your data volume. The backup apps didn't support it. And I talked to like Dave Nanian at SharePocket Software, and he was getting nothing from Apple. I mean, this stuff wasn't documented. They needed to figure out how, if you're a backup app, you've got to be able to back it up and restore it. And how do you do that? And Apple wasn't, saying they actually ended up having to, sort of figure it out on their own. So, for a while, we didn't have backup apps. And until 10.15.3, there were issues with mail that would just lose data. There's still some issues which are apparently fixed in 10.15.4, which fix the moving bug. So if there's some bugs that you can trigger by moving messages between mailbox in certain ways that will just delete them. Like, oh well, you didn't want that message, did you? And because this is all happening in IMAP, you've lost your data. You can't actually back up mail. If it's going to destroy the data, it's going to destroy the data. You can't get it back in any kind of useful way. Time Machine doesn't really do that at this point in time. So, and before the 10.15.3 bugs, those were just like, oh, you've upgraded to mail. So sorry, you lost some data. That's just not acceptable. It really isn't. And so, 10.15.4, I think, is the one where I will say, yeah, okay, you don't have to do this immediately, but now we feel like there are no more significant obstacles.
All right. So since we're out of the gate in such a positive fashion, let me say one word to you and then see what your reaction is. Netflix.
Yes. Oh man, what a bunch of bozos. Sorry. Okay. So Netflix, the news today. 1 year ago today, on February 6th, 2019, I wrote an article titled "Death to Autoplay." Because I had just finally lost it. I was like, I cannot handle these stupid autoplay previews in Netflix. You open the Netflix app on your Apple TV. It's the only place I really use it, but it wasn't a problem in iOS, actually, interestingly, but plenty of other places it was. And you're trying to scroll around and read the description of a show to see if you might want to watch it, or a movie. And you'd get about 8 words in, and then it would start talking at you and moving. And you're trying to pay attention to read the words. And do you know how hard it is to read while something is talking at you and moving at you? And utterly maddening. And so I put up with it for a little while, and then finally I just lost it. It's that scene from was it Network? The guy's like, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore." Yeah. Beautiful link to that and little YouTube clip in the article. And so exactly 1 year later, Netflix like, "We've been listening to feedback from our customers, and we hear you loud and clear. So we've introduced an option." I'm like, it's been a freaking year. I mean, this is not exactly a quick response. But yes, you can finally turn off the autoplay previews in Netflix. So life has just gotten a little better.
Okay.
It's just one of those things. It just nags. It's one of those. There was no need for it. That they could have. There were all sorts of ways they could have done it so that you could see the preview if you wanted. It didn't have to kick at you automatically. And nope, they chose to make it automatic and give you no choice for a year.
Yeah, but this
it's my business, right? Like, I'm the one who gets to who gets to do this. They should be working for me. I'm the customer. They shouldn't be forcing their stuff on me. That's what it's same with Apple and the Apple TV app. Companies now, they don't get it. They seem to see us all as just these complete passive advertisement vehicles where they can push stuff at us over and over and over again. We have to sit and take it. And that's just not what computers are about. And that's why I'm particularly annoyed at Apple for doing it. The Apple TV app, I should be able to figure out what shows I want to see and see those shows. It shouldn't have to be constantly advertised for all the Apple TV Plus stuff that I don't want to see.
Okay, so I agree with you. Let me
good, because you're on the right side of history.
Yeah, well, good. But
first up against the wall when the revolution comes, autoplay people.
Yeah. But you also are seeing it more and more on the websites, and I'm not sure that. Yeah, there's an advertising mechanism to it. I think it's more that the attention spans are so low that they're trying to grab you before your attention gets distracted by something else.
Sure. Too bad. That's my attention, not theirs. And I'm reading this article. Having a video start playing while I'm reading the article, tremendously offensive. I mean, it is actually abusive. And heck, the browsers have started to put in features to stop this. I mean, they're stopping at the tech level because it's so obnoxious. And, it's one of those things where we used to care. I mean, we still care as users, but we cared about how we interacted with technology. Technology was meant to serve us. And yet now we're just being manipulated by it. And the companies who are behind us are the ones doing the manipulating. That, he might not come back and read this thing, so we better make it flat, start talking in the background. I don't want to watch your freaking videos. I want to read the article that I navigated to. That's why I'm on this thing. Macworld for many years. I actually never go to Macworld anymore. Maybe they're better now. I gave up on Macworld. They're not better now. I gave up on Macworld because you'd go to a Macworld article and there'd be a video about something else that would start autoplaying.
Right.
how is this helping me? How is this serving me? This is not making my life better. All this is doing is them trying to sucker me into being couch potato of eyeballs that's going to click their links and watch their videos that they want me to watch, not that I want to watch. I'm completely uninterested in that video. I had the article I was trying to read right here. It's just, I mean, it's a bigger picture problem, right? I haven't written about this yet because I haven't quite coalesced my thinking about it. But we need software that works for us. What software works for us? I mean, Siri, come on, you got to tell Siri to do everything. Where's the proactivity? If you have an assistant knows what you like because you've told them and gives you what you like or what you need at the time you need it and prevents people from getting at you. I mean, that's why people have secretaries. So someone's sitting out there and keeps the public from coming in and talking to you while you're trying to get your work done. Why don't we have software that sits in front of it and keeps the autoplay previews away and keeps all this other stuff at bay? The trackers, the adware and the malware. I mean, that's why you have locks on your office door to keep the thieves out. We do. This is why don't we have software that does this as well? We certainly got plenty of it coming at us aggressively. So I think it's time for these companies to step up and actually make something that works for the user for a change.
Go back to Siri for a second. Because I'm serious because that's a really interesting example, and I'm trying to gauge my reaction to that comment and think about it. And the first example that comes to mind is Waze. All right, every morning I get in my car to go to the office, and Waze pops up and says, 10 minutes to the office, 15 minutes to the office, traffic is light, or, oh my God, you're going to be late, traffic is terrible. Okay, that's great, except that it still does it on Saturdays and Sundays, and
kind of stupid. Yes.
It's stupid, but is this part of the process? Are we on the way? Because I'm debating this.
So.
How do I feel about coming home and having my house say, do you want to turn the TV on? Do you want to turn the lights on? Do you want to, it's raining out. Do you want your galoshes?
I think that's a little bit more, for instance, here's a better example. So something like the Waze going to the office actually is not terrible, but we set alarms and calendars all the time, right?
Right.
And so I do this where I either forget to set an alarm or the alarm's set for 30 minutes, but it's only going to take me 5 minutes to get where I'm going. So I kind of ignore the 30-minute alarm because I got 15, 20 minutes more easily, and then I forget entirely. Like, why do our computers not notice that we haven't moved and we're supposed to be somewhere you really, really have to leave now? I mean, obviously it's an option. No one should be forced into this. But I would really, I hate being late. I mean, I'm just, missing things. I'm very embarrassed by that. I would really like it if, I could say, it knows my travel time. I mean, it's very good about that, right? So why can't it just say, you really have to leave? As in, I'm going to become more and more insistent that you have to go because you've got to go, or you're gonna miss this thing, as opposed to just a little beep or a little buzz, like all the other little beeps or buzzes you get in your pocket. I mean, that's part of the problem. There's so many of them, you don't necessarily know which ones are important anymore. So an assistant would come into your office and say, you have to leave now. If you're going to make this meeting, you have to be there now. That's what an assistant would do. Does anything we have do that? No, it just goes beep, your appointment's in 30 minutes. That's all.
I'm trying to think of what the app is, but I've got something that tells me, okay, I have a meeting at 9:00 tomorrow morning, and it gets to be 9:15, and if I haven't dismissed it, it says, overdue. And that's about as close as it gets.
Yeah, but does it actually do the equivalent of walking into your office and saying, Chuck, you need to leave now? such that you
Well,
can't ignore it. It would have to actively say, yes, I'm skipping that meeting, or I know I'm going to be late. That's acceptable in this case. I mean, that's what you would do if you had a secretary who managed your schedule. If you were important like that, maybe you are important like that. I don't know. Do you have a secretary?
no, I would no. I'm my own secretary.
Yeah, see, but seriously, think about the CEO types who have administrative assistants, who have secretaries. Those people manage their schedules, and that's how it works. There's someone who's actually managing it, as opposed to we should go now. I'm just going to sit here and wait until you say something, because I'm going to say we should. I just said we should go now, and you can ignore me for 30 minutes, and I'm not going to say anything ever again, because you're like, yes, I'm talking, and then you ignore the person for 30 minutes. No one does that. That's not how it works in the real world. So we don't have assistants. We call Siri a virtual assistant. Siri is just a really bad virtual assistant. Siri is sort of the level of like a clever monkey. Don't get me wrong, I like being able to turn on the lights, although it is, there are times you're like, you start to get a little impatient when Siri fails to turn on the lights properly or whatever it is. I use Siri all the time to make reminders. Don't get me wrong, I like the voice input. But man, sometimes those reminders are like, okay, what do you think I meant that time? There was one time I was writing an article about this, where I have a list in reminders called Pocket List, because I needed something like, literally it's the thing I would have in my pocket to remind me what to do. And he misheard me and said, you don't have a list, labeled Pakai list. It was like, even with like a little acute or something like that. I was like, Siri's in Klingon now? It was eviscerate your enemies list. I don't know. So there are. Siri's pretty useful for what the technology can do. But it's still so weak in terms of anything beyond play this song, make a reminder, turn the lights on. The problem is that many of those things aren't really that much harder to do in other ways. Having someone actually manage my schedule, that's harder to do in other ways.
Oh yeah, and I guess that's where I'm going is, are we on that path, but we're just not there yet? And as usual with us technology-oriented humans, we're impatient to get there.
Damn right. Want it now. Flying cars.
Jetpacks.
Jetpacks.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want so much jetpack. What I want is an electric powered paraglider. Powered paragliders with an electric motor.
What could go wrong?
They're really safe. They're like parachutes. Jetpacks, now those could go wrong. The paragliders are parachutes. You lose power, you just float down. Just saying.
Okay.
But I've heard they're louder than I expected. I thought they would be quieter than the gas-powered ones. I don't want a gas-powered one. I want an electric-powered one.
You want an electric one. Okay.
But apparently it's the fan that makes all the noise. So I'm a little bummed about that.
Well, maybe you could get some extra solar panels up there, and that way you can just stay left the whole time.
Once we have solar cloth, we could. That's an interesting thought. You'd probably need a really big chute then.
Yeah, I have this vision of you trying to do a round the world trip on a solar powered paraglider.
I've only gone paragliding once. It was in Switzerland last summer, in the Alps, and had a day when I did. Tanya and I split up for the day, and I did this stuff called Via Ferrata, or it's called Klettersteig in German speaking countries, where it's kind of like rock climbing light. There's a steel cable that's pegged into the wall on the mountain face, or I was on the side of a cliff in this particular spot. And you have two clips, climbing harness, and you're always clipped in, and you're clipping in one, you move to the next one, you clip in, you walk a little bit, that sort of thing. And so it's you really can't kill yourself because you're always clipped in. And but you're looking down the side of the cliff, you're like, whoa, look at that, 600 feet down, neat. Turns out I'm really not afraid of heights. But so I did that, and then I had more time in the afternoon, so I signed up for paragliding. Same thing, top of the mountain, all the way down. It was great. Although amusingly, my pilot was from the Hudson Valley in New York. And I was chatting with him. I was like, oh, and like he grew up on an organic farm. He knew the Ithaca Farmers Market because they'd sold cheese there. It was great. I had so much fun. But so we're doing this. He's taking me paragliding, and you always go tandem. Until you've learned how to do this, obviously. And so, but it was really cool to be paragliding, between, the Eiger and whatever the mountain Murin is on. And it was just like the scenery that absolutely unbelievable. And I was like, this would be really cool. But the problem is you get down to the bottom and you got to somehow get back up to the top. So that's why you need the power.
Yeah,
so I started researching it, power paragliding. Yeah.
Okay. Just a man of the world, Adam Engst.
That's
folks,
right. That's right. And we saw an international class track meet in Switzerland, in Lausanne. So watching the best in the world run, and where they appreciate track and field in Europe. Stadium full of people. It was great.
Okay.
But any event, so no, I mean, I think there's more to this assistant concept. I mean, come on, you remember the Knowledge Navigator video? That's that John Scully, Alan Kay did some stuff way back when. I mean, people have been talking about this forever, and it just feels like maybe we're getting there, but boy, we're moving awfully slowly, and there's so much more energy, effort, code, money being put into this stuff that I feel isn't really serving us. Like a lot of the data tracking and that New York Times article about how location tracking companies can track you basically every moment of your day, and how with this data you can easily find anyone and see what they do and all this kind of stuff. That amount of effort going into that kind of technology is, I mean, even at the most positive, it's to sell us crap.
Sure.
It's not serving us. It's exploiting us. So why can't we get some kind of effort put into stuff that actually serves us? And I mean, Apple's doing better than most companies in terms of not exploiting us, Apple TV app notwithstanding. But they're not really serving us, right? They're like, oh, we'll stop some of the tracking in Safari. Oh, well, yeah, that's good. We'll let you silence unknown callers. I don't want to silence unknown callers. I want you to actually send electric shocks down the phone. Come on. Let's get some real technology in here.
You're talking about a guy from insurance that's in insurance. No, we don't want to send electric shocks down the phone at him. But I see your point. I see your point. I see your point. And I guess I look at it and I just feel like things are getting better. It's incremental. It's like a glacier, but I do think they're getting better. But along the way, A, they can't, either they need to monetize it, or B, they can't resist it. And, somebody just has to say, I could just squeak this much information out and it's going to give me this much money. And that's the part of the problem.
Right. It's a slippery slope. Because then you've got, minute by minute location data on millions of citizens. Gee, you think that's okay? Oh, I don't. I said I hope those Times reporters win a Pulitzer. That stuff was incredibly valuable to expose, because I had no idea. And I'm in the freaking industry. I know to turn off location tracking in certain things, but I didn't realize just how embedded it was in apps you don't expect it to be. Or the apps that you think are innocuous, like WeatherBug. I actually kind of like WeatherBug. It's a good weather app. I did not realize that the company was doing all sorts of location tracking and sales. Too damn bad. I mean, I'm more fool me in some ways, but again, if I can't be aware on top of this, how can anyone who is not in the technology industry expect to?
Zapier is supporting this edition of MacVoices. Easy automation for busy people. Jumping from one software application to another is a huge time suck for small and medium-sized businesses. Email, accounting, CRMs. Most people use dozens of apps every day. Now, think about how much easier it would be if they all worked together. Introducing Zapier. Zapier connects all of your web apps, moving information between them automatically and seamlessly. With support for over 1,500 apps, Zapier works with what you're already working with. Concerned about the learning curve? Don't be. Creating your first Zapier automation will take you minutes, not hours, and you don't write a character of code. Just pick the apps, pick the information, and pick what you want to do, and you've built your first automation. No more wasting your time on tasks that you know could be automated, because that's exactly what Zapier was built to do. More than 4.5 million people are saving an average of 40 hours per month using Zapier. You could be one of them. Right now, through the end of the month, try Zapier free by going to our special link, zapier.com/MacVoices. That's Zapier, Zapier.com/MacVoices for your free 14-day trial. Zapier.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Zapier for their support of MacVoices. But, and I'm not defending Weatherbug or anybody else, but at the same time, if I want recommendations for a restaurant, it has to know where I am to give me decent recommendations.
But that's what you bring up your restaurant recommendation app for, not your weather app.
Oh no! Well, but if
that's just it.
Right. But if I want the hyperlocal weather, I've got to. The app has to know where I am.
It does, but it doesn't need to share that with everybody.
That I agree with. Yeah.
I'm totally cool with location being a thing that you use for your purposes. But that's different than, oh, well, we've got your locations. Now we're going to sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
It's just like, and behind the scenes, not okay. Just not okay. Yeah. And I guess, what I thought was most fascinating about what the Times article showed was how easy it was to identify a person and follow them. And basically anyone, celebrities, politicians, Secret Service agents, policemen, firemen, doctors, lawyers, anyone you want, all you have to do is find their home address, pick up their dot, and then see where they go. You want to talk about, in the wrong hands, and I think, in some sense, I guess it's a good thing that we haven't seen it actually exploited yet, because, it doesn't seem very hard, honestly.
Oh no! Think about the ability to know when you're home, when you're not home, and to know that I'm going to be a specific place most of the day.
Okay, no, we don't have, you're not interesting to foreign governments, whatever, but, what if you have an ex-spouse who's really unhappy with you and, can pay someone to get this information? It just gets to be real issue. And so I said, but this is partly why, this comes out. We obviously, maybe we'll get some legislation that controls what kind of data can be shared. Obviously, Europe's done it with GDPR, and California is doing stuff with CCPA. But this is a little bit of why I want to see the tech companies stepping up with software that is actively trying to work on our behalf, because then it doesn't require us to be constantly, to work through a system that could take years and still come up with something half baked that companies can ignore if they want anyway, because, well, they have to just not get caught, right? You can break the law, you just don't want to get caught. Or if you're bad guys, you're already breaking the law. What do you care if this is just one more thing? You're not actually killing people for this. That's way smaller crime. Or you're a foreign government. What do we care? So it's like legislation's only going to go so far. But if you actually everyone had their autonomous agent, their assistant, saying, I've detected that, there's this tracker, I detected this tracker and shut it down. Or I've detected this tracker and I fed it incorrect information. Why not? If we can come up with the kind of technology that does the tracking stuff and the fingerprinting, have you ever looked into how subtle the fingerprinting stuff is? It's amazing how they can tell who you are, even if you're not tracked in sort of the standard ways, just because you do things on your computer in a very standardized way. Your computer identifies itself. So even things like battery levels in your laptop. So if you go to a site, it could read your battery level. If you go to the next site, your battery level is infinitesimally smaller, they know you're the same person, even if you're not being tracked. Seriously, that amount of effort is going into being able to feed you ads that don't work anyway. I mean, like, they're still bad ads. I mean, I have to assume that they must work sufficiently that people, that the advertisers are willing to pay for them. But I'm just astonished. I actually find, I don't click on ads anyway, but I'm more perturbed by ads that seem to know something about me than ones that are just like, oh, he's the sort of person who reads the New Yorker or whatever. You're flipping through a magazine. They're assuming you're a kind of person. The ads get to be aspirational. As a friend of mine noted, and you get The Economist, they assume that you want to work for the CIA and start a company and own a private jet. Cool. I'd like to see ads about owning a private jet. Never going to do it, but it's more entertaining than the ads that I see anywhere else. So why not?
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. The effectiveness. I mean, that's somebody is buying these ads, and that's the first thing. And second, people are not stupid. They're not going to buy ads that don't work. So I don't know many people that have clicked through and bought anything with an ad. I want to know who the people are that are clicking through and buying, because everybody I talk to and everybody you talk to, nobody's doing it, and yet they're still selling the ads.
And honestly, I do ads, right? We do ads on TidBITS. I personally think they don't work. The fact is they're not for click through. They're for branding.
Right.
So branding is someone sees it, they say, Smile, look, they're supporting TidBITS. I like Smile. Smile's doing a good job. They're not going to click through and buy a PDF pen today or tomorrow or something. But 6 months down the road, they need a PDF app. Oh yeah, Smile does that. And I like I like that they're supporting TidBITS. That's how we do advertising. But whenever anyone's like, what's my click-through rate going to be? I'm like, well, yeah, not very good, honestly, because no one's click-through rate's very good. I mean, even if we had a great click-through rate, it would still be, 0.01% or something. So it's just so frustrating. And then of course you get into the whole issue with technology, with the publishing world in general, where if you're going to fund on ads, you have to have enough viewers that you got a ton of eyeballs and enough to get enough clicks on those, for enough raw number of clicks on that very, very small percentage. And that means that you then have to do things which are going to be attracting eyeballs potentially at the cost of accuracy or fairness or anything else. That I think it's, it creates bad journalism.
Yeah.
So okay, and now we're going positive again. Netflix, yeah, autoplay's dead.
Well, and now for a word from our sponsors. But no, you're right. I mean, there will be a sponsor spot in this MacVoices, and would I like for you to click through? Absolutely, I'd like for you to click through to learn about the product. If you decide to do it, that's your business. That's between you and them. But definitely, I want you to be aware, and I've talked about this a little bit, but not on an actual MacVoices. I'm kind of picky about what ads I will accept or not accept, because I don't want to put something in just for the sake of having it there. I either want to believe in it, or I want to feel like I use it, or am comfortable saying, "Hey, you know what, Adam? I don't drive a brand X, but I think it's a pretty good car, and you should take a look at it."
I don't even know the name, so I can't even say who they are. But I just got someone who wanted to do ads on TidBITS, and it was they were selling Apple stuff, AirPods and watches and things like that. And it seemed like actually pretty good prices. And I forget, they had some way of, they were like stuff that was, overstock or whatever, so they could get a good discount on them. But what was interesting is they kept saying, such and such price down from X. And I was like, but that's not the price of these things. The X wasn't right. The AirPods weren't $229 or something like that. They were $159. And I went back and forth. I was like, I couldn't do this. This is deceptive. And then it came out that the X was in Canadian prices. But the Y was, or the Y was in Canadian prices, the large one, and the one that was in US price. I was like, well, that's also deceptive. Like, you can't do that. And so at some point, I was just like, I can't work with you. Like, this is not acceptable. The fact that we're having this conversation means that we can't have this conversation. That you're not an appropriate thing, an appropriate advertiser for TidBITS, because I don't want anyone to feel, I never want anyone to feel deceived by something.
Right.
That's not what we're about. We're about explaining things and shedding light, not obfuscating and deceiving. So, and we're not really about saving money at all costs. So, we could do that if we wanted, but it's nice if it happens, but let's face it, it's much more important to get something that's good before, rather than something that's cheap.
Well, you just said a mouthful, and that's a real problem, I think, with a lot of products, and a lot of people that approach you and approach me is, well, this is just as good as. No, it's not. I mean, it may be at some level and at certain things, but there's no way that you can do. Let's take AirPods for an example. You may be able to, and there are some out there that are definitely better sounding. If you're an audiophile, they are absolutely better sounding earpieces, earbuds, whatever. But you're either selling them for a higher price or they don't integrate in with the Apple ecosystem. And so, you got to choose your priorities. And I have no problem with taking on something like that because, yeah, they have a place in the market. But for you to tell me I've got these earbuds that are, just as good as AirPods and they're $29.95. You're going to have to prove it to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see it in the other direction, right? I mean, the HomePod is a really good speaker. Is it as good a smart speaker as an Echo or a Google Home? I actually don't know because I don't have either of the other two. But my understanding is in a lot of ways people say no, it's not. But it sounds great and it integrates into the Apple ecosystem very well. So we put up with a high price,
and it's more private.
And it's more private. Yeah, and absolutely.
Go full circle back to our other discussion. Yeah,
precisely. And so, so I'm willing to pay for that, but I'm also pretty aware that it's a lot more expensive than these other things. So that's you got to be upfront with all this stuff, and you pick your poison. But sometimes you're paying for this, and the big software announcement of the week was Fantastical 3. And you've undoubtedly heard about this. They went subscription, and there's been much tearing of the clothes and rending of the hair. No, it's tearing of the hair and rending of the. I can't remember. There's rending involved. I know that. And to an extent, I get it. The subscriptions, you just feel like that everything's going subscription, and you're being nickeled and dimed. There's always something that's trying to to get you to pay some amount per month. But on the other hand, I think they've actually done a really good job of threading the needle in terms of there's a free version that has a fair amount of functionality. That if you upgrade it, if you have Fantastical 2, you get all those features for free in the updated code base without the subscription. And then the subscription does have some legitimately useful stuff, but there was a certain level of, I was like, do you remember how much this software used to cost? I mean, back in the day, you'd spend $129 on a calendar app. Yep. and be happy about it. And there'd be a paid upgrade in a year and a half or a year, whatever. And in fact, Now Up to Date, that was the name. I lost the name because it was Now Contact and Now Up to Date. With the contact on the calendar. And I was saying Now Calendar. No, it's not Now Calendar. Now Up to Date, Now Software went under because of their Nighthawk project, it was called. Nighthawk was the new version of Now Up to Date. And they never were able to finish it, and they ran out of money. They didn't get it done in time. And they had to do this really big fancy update to justify the upgrade costs. And it was a project that got out of hand. And so, would we still have Now Up to Date and Contact if if they'd had subscriptions? Who knows? But it seems a little more likely because it wouldn't have been this, spike and then drop down and then be stable for a long time. It could have just been, kind of wiggling along, actually providing them money as they needed to develop. along. So, I mean, I think subscriptions make a ton of sense as a business model. Simultaneously, I do understand why customers are becoming increasingly irritated with them, because how many do you need? I mean, or how many can you absorb, I should say? What is your actual monthly budget for software? And everyone has to answer that for themselves. But when you're competing against Office, which is $9.99 a month or something like that, boy, it's hard to say, wow, this other thing should be $5 a month. I don't know. Is it really worth half of Office? At least Creative Cloud's, $55 a month or something like that. You can easily say that, that's expensive. We know that's expensive, but it becomes difficult decisions on both sides of how to price stuff and how much you can absorb.
And again, this is a discussion that I never get tired of having, because the developers have to be paid. Okay, yeah, and
they do, and most of them are not driving Teslas.
No, you're absolutely.
I really don't think they're driving Teslas. Yeah. From what I've heard.
But the other thing, I think that you have to look at the app, and as a developer, and I'm not a developer, folks, so I'm speaking out of turn here a little, but I think you as a customer, they as a developer have to look at this and say, is this an app? How often do I use this app? And does it make sense for it to be a subscription model? Something I use, like Text Expander, absolutely. I use it multiple times an hour. I have no problem paying for that because I really use it. Fantastical, I'm not a Fantastical user, but it's a calendar app. I mean, I'm going to use that pretty regularly, unless I'm retired and have no calendar.
Yeah.
So,
and now there are a few interesting models. Again, I think I'm going to write about it at some point or another. Panorama 10, the database that ProView Development does. They do an interesting usage-based model where it's sort of a subscription, but if you don't actually use the app in a month, you don't get, you have to use it for a certain amount of time to become like, okay, you've used it this month, and then you have to pay for the month. But if you're not using it, you don't pay. And I kind of like that because it does feel to me like where people feel bad about subscriptions, because you say you don't feel at all bad about Text Expander, and you wouldn't feel bad about a calendar app. But I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, in fact, Illustrator or something like that. You might want Photoshop or Illustrator, have them around. You might need it once every couple of months, but you're not going to pay $55 a month for that opportunity. Right. But if you could pay for the months in which you do use it, then you got, then you're talking as far as, is this worthwhile to you or not?
We'll go back. This is a weird conversation. Go back to Netflix.
Accomplished.
I mean, there are plenty of people that dip in and out of Netflix, and dip in and out of CBS All Access, and dip in and out of pick your subscription service. They go in, they binge what they want, and then they step away. And in a way, I know that's not what the companies would like, but it makes a certain amount of sense because the companies are getting paid, maybe not as much as they want, but they're getting paid. The customer is saving money off of what they could be paying. And, and so there's the incentive to give me more content, or give me content that I want to go back and view. And so I will continue my subscription longer
And my bet is that the many, many more people fail to watch CBS All Access or whatever. I mean, like, I don't subscribe to CBS All Access. The only reason why I would is the Star Trek show. So if I was to subscribe for that one show, well, I'm not getting my money's worth there. Like I watch Netflix or Amazon Prime, probably every night, for some, 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is, watch one show a night usually. And so I feel like with those, I'm getting my money's worth. If I was watching one show a week or whatever, I don't know how the Star Trek show is available. It would just feel like a waste of money. And so, that again, it's a usage-based thing at that point, not a you're not getting your money for your usage. And so I'll bet a lot more people actually, though, are subscribing to something like CBS All Access and then not watching it. So it's just all complete gravy to the company because they're not serving anything.
Sure. But you and I both know people that will go to the movies at least once every single weekend and pay that premium.
But yeah, they probably exist. I don't know any who does that anymore.
Yeah, I know a few, and and so you're paying a super premium price for 2 hours of entertainment, 4 if you go twice in a week.
And movies are really expensive now.
Exactly.
That's partly why people don't go. It's like you take your family and it's like $80 or something.
Right, but there are still some that do, and yet they are some of the very ones that will grouse about, well, this subscription service is killing me, and it's like, well, you can get a better value. You can as long as you can stay awake, you can watch programming off of those, but they throw you out of the movie theater after the movie's over.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I personally believe I am a fairly internally consistent person. That I try to, if I'm going to say that this is the way I do things, then I will actually do them that way. So yeah, so I have trouble with people who would go spend money in one way and then complain about it in the other. But yeah, so I mean, like, I don't subscribe to CBS All Access or anything other than Netflix. We get Amazon Prime Video, but that's ancillary. We don't get it for the video at all. I mean, with the fact that it's there, we'll watch the video sometimes, but it's not the point. And if the video were unbundled, we wouldn't get it. Simple as that. What it comes down to is that Netflix has more content than we could ever possibly watch in our lives. So good, we'll watch what's available. We don't have to, we're not caught up in, we have to see something, hardly ever. I mean, once every year or two, we'll rent a movie because we want to see something specific and it's not available for streaming. Right. But it really is literally once every year or two.
So you subscribe to Netflix and yet you're furious with Netflix.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Because they were messing up the user experience, right? I actually wanted to use them. They were making it hard for me to use them, which I was like, come on, I'm paying you. Stop getting in my face. Stop trying to get me to do something that I don't want to do. I'm already your loyal customer. It wasn't like they had to get me because I was a free user or something. I was already paying them very happily, and so that's why I was particularly offended. It's the same thing with Apple and the Apple TV. Like, we're already loyal customers. You don't have to keep pushing stuff at us, and so yeah. So
before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you a question, and serious about this. You have a kind of a big deal anniversary or big number coming up on TidBITS.
It is a big number. We are next week, next Monday, coming up really fast. Will be issue 1500, which means we've been publishing TidBITS for over, because we don't do we take a couple of weeks off every year, over 1500 weeks, which is a lot of weeks.
That's a lot of weeks.
That's a lot of weeks. I mean, it's not quite 30 years because we'll hit 30 years in April. So that gives you a way of evening it out. But yeah, so I don't even quite know what to do about it, honestly. That it's a funny number, right? 1,000. That's a nice big round number. We probably did something with 1,000. I should go look. 1,024 would have been fun because that's 1,000 and kilobytes, kilo. So, but 1,500. It's big and it's round. I don't know. Will we hit 2,000? I mean, another 500 weeks. That's another 10 years. I don't know. 10 years more seems like a lot. I'm not actually guaranteeing 10 more years. Might happen, but I'm not guaranteeing it. So yes, I don't think I don't know if we'll hit 2,000 for certainly so long that it's hard to say. So does 1,500 seem like an important number? Or is there a better number sort of around 1,500 that'd be a better, interesting computer number? Well, I can think of offhand.
Okay. Well, here's the question I wanted to ask you. At 1,500, all right, TidBITS started out as
at one.
Well,
to be clear.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. But you started out in a completely different format.
Yes, HyperCard.
Right. And now now you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the longest running newsletter out there. Okay.
Yes.
Is this your favorite way to publish the information you deliver in TidBITS? Now that we have, because I looked you up, you have a Facebook page, you have a Twitter account, you have Slack. I honestly forgot about Instagram. I don't know if you're on Instagram. Um, is yeah. Is this at this point with all the changes we've seen and we're both sitting here grousing about how things get pushed to us now? Is this your favorite way to deliver the information through the email version of TidBITS?
Well, we obviously have the website too. So, but yes.
Well, yeah. But the
So,
website, but the email newsletter way preceded the website.
Oh, from way back when, yes.
Right.
I mean, we predate the web, so
yeah. So,
I mean, I remember when this whole web thing started. Yes, I am that old. Interesting. So, one thing I remember back in the early days of the internet, we still had a lot of commercial online services. So we had AOL and Genie and Bix and Delphi, the Well, CompuServe, all sorts of things. And back in those days, distributing tidbits actually took a while because we had it everywhere. That we uploaded tidbits to every place we could, Apple Link, and so in some sense, it got simpler when all those things went away and we just had a website and an email newsletter. And but at the same time, there's still RSS. We've gone through a number of feed formats. We have an app. I mean, Matt Newberg does the app. It's basically still just a feed reader. What I'm getting at is that what's important about publications is that you can read them the way you want to. That I think it's important for a publication to have kind of a home or a core format in some way. But like we're on Apple News now. You can theoretically get us on Google News, but I don't entirely understand Google News in terms of like the app and what it does. I still don't quite get that. Apple News, we actually, you have to send it to them and feeds and stuff. And I do think it is important to be available in multiple places, and so that you are not just people don't have to find you in quite the same way. But I also really feel that it's important to own your own space. That one of the real problems I think a lot of publications hit was like getting in bed with Facebook. Like I could never see publishing tidbits exclusively on Medium. Yeah, you don't own Medium. They own Medium. And it might be a great platform for publishing stuff. We might be able to get a lot of traffic from there, but it's not yours. And as a publisher, I do believe that it's important to control your fate. Because certainly no one else is interested in keeping it going. So is this my favorite way to publish tidbits? I think I'm still going to go with email. I mean, I like our website a lot. I'm very fond of our discourse-based discussion forum right now. But when push comes to shove, I like stuff in email. It's just when I read blogs to the extent that I read blogs today, I get them in email because I'm not going to go to a website regularly and see stuff. In Discourse, one of the things I like about it is it's willing to talk to you in email too. You can interact. I actually like its website a great deal. I mean, it's a tremendous composer, all that kind of stuff. But you can interact with it via email, and even if you do want to interact with it via the web, it'll tell you what's going on via email. So I think that's important. I do not like social media one bit for news stuff, and part of it is just that I think these platforms are completely, to the extent that they're not inherently evil, they've been taken over by too many forces which do not have anyone's best interests at heart. And Facebook, I think, is basically evil on its own, so it doesn't even need to be taken over. These people do not want you are such a product to them. They are not serving you in any way, shape, or form. And Facebook is the worst. I don't use Instagram. don't quite understand Instagram beyond the, like, you want to actually share photos. I get the sharing photos thing, but the sharing, I'm going to put an image up that's not really an interesting photo so I can post something else. I find that dodgy. Twitter, to the extent that it's sort of public instant messaging, yeah, fine, whatever. But I'm certainly not reading Twitter. Someone pings me via Twitter, I'm happy to interact with them. But it's not a publishing medium. And again, you don't own it. Twitter owns you lock, stock, and barrel when you're posting there. So I can't see anyone doing that if they are serious. Just particularly YouTube, same thing. Obviously, people make millions on YouTube, posting themselves doing stupid things, and I remain completely surprised that works. And it does make you fear for the future of civilization. But apart from that, hey, whatever. But it's the same thing. YouTube changes their algorithm. Suddenly, you were making millions. Now you're making nothing. Too bad. That's your problem because you don't own you don't have no control. So I don't know. Did that answer your question? I realize I'm rambling, but I was not quite expecting where to go. Like, what's favorite?
Yeah, well, good. That was kind of my point. Is what struck me in your answer, Adam, was you talked about the early days with Wix and the source and CompuServe, and you distribute all those places. You're still doing it. You're still going everywhere. But I 100% agree with you, which is why I publish MacVoices the way I do. Yes, I want to own my content, but I want to go where the people are. If I'm going to sell hot dogs, I'm not going to sell them out in front of my house because I don't have that much traffic. I'm going to go over to the football stadium where there's a whole lot of traffic, and that's what you got to do. But I also agree with you 100%. You have to own your own content one way or another.
And I will say that people get caught up in the whole Facebook and Twitter and blah 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 things, and we don't get any traffic from those sources. We just don't. Yes, we're on Facebook, and I can see when people click. I can get the analytics, and I won't say it never happens. Every now and then, something will kick traffic to us in a big way. But the fact is that where we get most of our traffic is Google search. It's organic traffic or it's Google search, and we got close to 30 years of archives, right? So, there's a lot of that. But realistically, what we're getting, Google will decide that some article is the best article ever on this topic, and we'll get a lot of hits on that article. How do you do anything with that? Like, in the sense of we're not here to monetize the eyeballs. That's not why we exist. So I'm glad that article's popular. It will do whatever any other article does, and I'm going to just go off and write another article on whatever happens next. And I'm not really even going to change things because I know if it wasn't that article was somehow the best article ever, or it's not like I can recreate that. It wasn't special. It was just lucky. And so, I might try to. I would like to be lucky more, I guess. But honestly, even the Google traffic doesn't really make any difference to us because we don't make money based on ad impressions. We sell sponsorships, so it's based on you're associating with us for a period of time. And we have some certain levels of readership that inform our pricing, but we do not do ad impressions in a big way because who cares? It's just like it doesn't work. And so we don't pay that much attention to the impressions on an article. That's not what matters. I was writing about the Netflix things. I feel like a tech Don Quixote. I'm tilting at windmills half the time. So I'm just amazed that something actually worked for once. Did they listen to me? Well, not obviously very quickly because it was a year later, but nonetheless. So like that article. I tried to promote that article. I forget. I can go look. It probably did okay, but it wasn't. It didn't go viral. And maybe if it had gone viral, we would have got Netflix would have done it in in a month, which is probably how long that kind of development should have taken. But so it's such a weird thing, and when people publish for different reasons, I find it very weird that I'm old school, like in terms of like I want to produce the best content for my readers to tell them things they don't know and they need to know, or that will make their lives better. That's why I'm doing this. And, I need to keep the lights on. I need to pay Josh. Those are the things that need to happen. But I'm not driving a Tesla. It's kind of what it comes down to. We're not doing the $100 a month subscriptions to TidBITS. So I think that I'm not trying to do things that increase revenue as a goal of the publishing.
Right.
I'm publishing because I want to share this information with people who care enough to read it. If you don't care enough to read it, oh well.
I think that's a good answer. I think that's a real good answer. I mean, I think that is almost the purest form of authorship and journalism in a world that has lost
in a world gone mad.
Well, in a world that has lost a lot of that purity. That there always seems to be a secondary agenda. We're not going to talk politics. But
a world gone mad.
Well, yeah. But I had a discussion with someone about this the other day that, what happened to, you had the news and then you had the commentator or the commentary. And now they stuck them both in a blender and hit frap. And you can't separate them anymore.
Well, and just, actually one of the reasons why I actually have very little idea what's going on with the whole presidential race and everything. I was like, let me know when there's something that I can have an opinion on. I could have 17 opinions and they could change over the next however many months. I'm like, tell me when there's actually a decision to be made. I can't make a decision until I have an opportunity. I don't need to follow the horse race. The horse race might make for daily headlines, but it does not actually tell me anything I need to know. It's a horse race, and I actually mean that literally. When you're watching a horse race, okay, there's a horse over there and a horse over there and a horse over there. Whatever. Tell me when they finish, Yeah. And at least in the horse race, I guess in the horse race, you never get to make a decision. In this case, at some point, I get to make a decision about what I'm going to do, and I can do that in relatively small amount of time. I do not need a year of horse race watching to be able to make a decision that's an informed decision. So many of the things I could become informed on all sorts of things that would never even be options in my decision. Oh yeah, that candidate, no, he dropped out, she dropped out. Oh well, they're no longer decisions. I don't need them in my head. I've got lots of other things in my head. Like the fact that the Macintosh toolbox was written in Pascal originally.
Which is extremely relevant.
Extremely relevant, but it's still stuck in there, damn it.
Ladies and gentlemen, your jockey out of Engst.
So it is absolutely, and I understand entirely the stresses that publishing organizations have to make money, and that publishing used to be, the fabulous line of publishing, the best way to make a small fortune in publishing is to start with a large one. And so, publishing used to be well funded, and that allowed certain freedom of freedom to do things. I won't say freedom of the press exactly, that's a different issue, but freedom to do certain kinds of publishing. And as the money has gotten tighter, it's gotten a lot harder to do that. And I feel for journalistic organizations because I know the kind of stresses they are under. And, but you got to come down somewhere on that. And some of them do a really, really good job of their journalism, and others are clearly there to capture your eyeballs and grind them up into sausage. Yuck.
Yeah, I think we'll end on that visual. Thank you.
Good.
That was good. That was good.
Eyeball sausage. That's what you are to the ad trackers.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, come on, Chuck. You're having fun.
Yeah, I am having fun. There's no question about it. We got to do this more often. This has been way too long. Way too long.
I don't get to do this in writing. I mean, it's way too hard to do this in writing.
Yeah, we've skewered like half a dozen industries here in the space of the show. God. Well, congratulations though on 1500. I mean, whether it's an important milestone or not, it's still one heck of a milestone.
Yeah. It is one of those things where you're like, holy cats, I'm still doing this. You're like, who knew? Yeah. I did not realize that I was still doing this 1500 weeks later.
Yeah, but still, obviously it's worked out for you, and it is important. I mean, hidden in those archives, there's a lot of history.
There is. I mean, I actually feel bad. Like for a while, I was trying to pull articles out on a regular basis, and I probably will start again relatively soon. I discovered it's a problem. News is slow at times, and so it's an excuse to I could go into the article and go into the and say 30 years ago here, or 20 years ago, here's this we wrote this article, and look where we are today. That's actually I did that a couple of times. It was really interesting. It was a lot of fun, and then we just got busy. WWDC and Catalina and iOS 13, and it just went nuts. We have not had the brain space to go we could go and find a history article. But it is interesting that we have 30 years of Apple history, and it's all there. It's all searchable, and the publications who I want to slap up are the ones that have let their archives go or change the URLs repeatedly or things like that. That every one of our URLs still works, from way back when. And it's really not that hard. I mean, we're doing it with, our budget. You would think that these big companies would have some real budgets to be able to do the same kind of thing. I mean, it's just URL redirects and parsing of URLs and keeping them alive. But apparently it's harder than it looks for some people, because it wasn't that hard for us. We still have we still honor every one of our old URL formats as far as called the TidBITS IDs. There were article IDs that everything had, and different IDs now, but it doesn't matter. Redirects still work.
Right.
So,
as a piece of history, you've jogged my memory with something. But if you go back in the MacVoices archive, you will see an interview done at Macworld with a representative of Now Software talking about that project.
Was it John Wallace?
Thank you. I couldn't pull it down.
He was the CEO. Super nice guy. John and his wife Sheila. They were both developers.
And it broke my heart when we lost Now, because yes, that is there.
I've lost entirely. I mean, I probably could still find them. I have not talked to them in years and years and years. But yeah, it was a very sad thing. And I was actually really glad when we got BusyCal and now Fantastical, because I've always hated Calendar. Calendar's a terrible app, and it's nice to see people putting more thought into that space again. The next one I obviously is contacts. We have Busy Contacts, but it's not enough. I was trying to print labels recently, and nothing prints labels very well anymore.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah.
And Beelight software used to have labels and addresses, which was just for printing labels, but it was 32-bit and old code, and they decided not to update it. And I was really sad, because you want to print labels for your holiday cards. Well, so you've got, the people the married couple who share a last name. And so you want to get so-and-so and so-and-so last name. Then you've got the married couple that have two last names. So it needs to be last name, first name, and last name, first name. There's nothing that can do that anymore, as far as I know. I mean, I couldn't find anything. And so we had to just go with having a single name on all our holiday cards, which we felt a little badly about. And a couple of them Tanya actually hand wrote in, because we're not trying to say we don't like both of you. We just couldn't figure out any way to print your names on this single label. Because Contacts certainly won't do it. And as I said, Busy Contacts didn't seem to. So the only Card Hop, Fantastical's thing, is a great little app for entry. I absolutely adore it for entering stuff. But it doesn't seem to do labels in a new way. I've just checked that again. I don't think so. But so that's just one of those things where, like, oh gosh, I feel like we've gone backwards.
Yeah. Well, software developers out there, or folks, if you know something, contact Adam. He would love to hear
Let
from
me
you.
know.
So
I'll write about it.
for
If
next
your app
year's,
does this, I will review it, guaranteed.
there you go.
So yeah,
There
it's
you go.
it's an interesting issue, but
Yeah.
we go forward in many ways and not in others. So
Yep. Well, Adam, thank you. Thank
you're
you for the
welcome.
time, and
Nice to chat.
we got to do it again. This was just way too much fun, and we'll talk post 1500 and see if anything, if the Earth shakes when you release it.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of betting. I may in fact say that this is not a huge thing in some ways for us, but wait for April, because 30 years feels like a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
That feels like, wow, that's really, that's a long time. Man.
Well, I'll drag you and Tanya and Josh back here, and we'll talk about 30 years of TidBITS.
Yeah, I mean, how many Josh has done? 8, 9? He's been working with us for a while. So yeah. Something like that. Cool.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Indeed, nice to see you. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Okay, take care. Folks, this is MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. That was Adam Engst. It's been way too long, but yeah, we skewered just about every industry that we hold dear. So I don't know what's going to happen next. Until the next time, as
lasers
always,
from Netflix.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.